carries. Next item, I'm going to jump ahead to GWA real quick here. GWA docket 2206, petition to authorize the Guam Waterworks Authority to issue an IFB invitation for bid to procure property, general liability, and other insurance services. We have an ALJ report and a proposed order. Joe Fett?
Thank you, Mr.
Yes,
Chairman.
go ahead.
I will have to recuse on this one because my firm was recently engaged by GWA to work on the appeal and the litigation against Cortec. Although I don't work on that matter for my firm, I always recuse myself when any of our clients appear before the commission.
Very well. So Mr. Pangilinan is recused from this particular document. Go ahead, Joe Fett.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So this matter concerns GWA's petition for PUC approval to issue an invitation for bid to procure property, general liability, and other insurance services for the Guam Waterworks Authority. In their petition, they request that the PUC approve the issuance of this IFB for the purchase of this insurance, as well as other types of insurance that they've indicated in their petition, on the basis that this insurance is required under its revenue bond indentures. According to GWA, its current insurance coverage is set to expire on May 1st of this year, and they submit that section 6.06 of its water and wastewater revenue bond indenture requires GWA to maintain insurance on the system with responsible insurers. And so we reviewed GWA's draft procurement documents, which seeks sealed bids for property insurance, general liability insurance, directors and officers liability insurance, automobile insurance, cyber liability, and crime insurance to cover GWA's system, assets, management, and personnel. Very much like its current coverage of insurance that it has now, Mr. Chairman. GWA requests PUC review and approval of this issuance for this procurement because it anticipates that contracted insurance will exceed $1 million per year based on its current insurance, the premium for its current contract frame. And so when they're looking at approval, we've looked at, again, the revenue bond indenture that GWA executed, and pursuant to section 6.06, GWA must indeed maintain insurance on its system in such amounts and against such risks as are usually maintained by prudent operators of systems similar and similarly situated to the system, and which it shall deem advisable or necessary to protect its interests as well as the interests of the bond owners. As this commission may recall, it has previously found that GWA is indeed required to maintain this type of insurance to protect the interests of the bond owners, as well as to comply with the provisions indicated in the bond indenture. This commission has also historically determined that GWA's bond indenture requires GWA to maintain insurance to protect against risks that are normally experienced by water and wastewater authorities. And also, the commission has also found that property insurance benefits ratepayers with regard to the protection of system assets, since insurance proceeds can assist recovery efforts after natural disasters such as typhoons and earthquakes. And so based on these reasons, Mr. Chairman, I recommended approval of GWA's procurement of insurance, property, general liability, and other forms that it sought in its petition.
Thank you, okay. Any comments from GWA at all?
Chair, no comment. The GM isn't present this evening, so present for the record is GWA CFO, and myself, legal counsel.
All right.
No
Thank you.
comment.
Any comments? comments or questions from the commissioners regarding this?
This is just for getting to us.
Yeah, for the procurement.
So they don't know how much they're looking at.
Yeah, they don't have the bids yet.
All they need insurance. Motion to approve docket 2206 GWA.
Is there a second? Second from Rowena. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. The motion carries 5-0. Thank you. Thanks, GWA.
Thank you.
Next item, GPA docket 2206, petition to approve GPA Navy Utility Service Agreement. We have an AL.
A new 10-year contract from August 1, 2022 through July of 2032. So just to clarify what this contract is, it doesn't set rates, it doesn't address any specific rate issues. Those are handled through the Navy tariff and through rate cases and proceedings that occurred before the PUC. But what the contract does is establishes a framework for the relationship between GPA and the Navy. It was fully negotiated, and you can tell from reviewing it, it does provide benefits to both of the parties. First of all, for GPA, the Navy basically agrees that GPA will be the only power provider. And that should mean that the Navy or the military won't then decide to go off on their own and set up their own power system. And that's very important for GPA because Navy is its largest customer. It produces revenues yearly from the Navy to GPA in the $60 to $70 million range. The Navy in the contract is required so that GPA can plan its and generally Navy uses about 43 megawatts per year of power. So not only is GPA the only provider, the Navy has agreed in the agreement, of course, to transfer to GPA and has been doing so over the year. There's still some that the Navy is an ongoing process. And so for that reason, GPA has a guaranteed demand and revenues provided to it. It should be mentioned on the fuel billings. You know, the fuel payments of Navy are not in LEAC. LEAC only involves residential and other customer classes, but not Navy. Navy is billed every 7 days for its fuel. And my understanding is Navy basically pays the current price for the fuel, so it's not on a LEAC factor. And it's required to pay within 7 days, so that's quite a different procedure. Now for the PUC, there's something that the Navy gives in this agreement, which is that it recognizes the PUC as they call it an eligible regulatory body under the FAR regulations. Now, basically here, the Navy agrees to comply with the current regulations, practices, and decisions of the PUC concerning accounting practices, allowability of costs, cost allocation, pricing and rates, settlement charges, and other charges and fees. subject to appeal to the Guam Superior Court and through the normal judicial process. And the Navy further recognizes the authority of the PUC to set base rates for GPA electricity service, to perform cost of service studies, to calculate and invoice fuel rates for Navy, and to change Navy rates through rate proceedings governed by PUC procedures. So again, the agreement itself doesn't really establish any particular rates. It just sets the formula for how rates are established. And one of the appendixes to the contract sets forth a methodology for how you determine these fuel and power costs. Now, the Navy too gets some advantages out of this contract. It gets a reliable provision of power for its needs. It can also, under the contract, ask GPA to run its facilities or even do repair work on its facilities, of course at a cost. But there are advantages there too to the Navy. And I think overall the Navy must have concluded in entering into these agreements over the past 30 years or so that GPA is a reliable power provider, and then it makes more sense to have GPA provide the power to the Navy than to have the Navy do it itself. So for all of those reasons, I feel that the contract was well negotiated. It's a fairly negotiated contract. It's the type of contract you can see that provides benefits to both sides. When I look at it overall, it certainly is beneficial to both Navy and GPA, but also to the ratepayers of Guam, because it provides many protections for GPA that really assist the ratepayers too. So my recommendation is that you approve the utility services contract for another 10-year term, and that recommendation is included in the draft order that I prepared for your consideration.
Thank you, Fred. John, any comments on this?
Just very quickly, Mr. Chairman. Again, if you recall, the power pool agreement took a long time to get the Navy to give us. So now we're just completing 30 years of them being a customer. So that's really an excellent accomplishment for all of us. The next 10 years, again, they're locked in. Like Fred said, there are provisions, and most especially this time, we asked for a little bit more in language to allow us to, again, provide service to the Navy. Because the objective is to one day take over the distribution system of the Navy. At one time, I estimated there's an additional $6 million a year of additional revenue, and it's actually substantially more in savings for the Navy. So I hope that one day, I don't think it might be in my time, but beyond that, I think they will probably be taking over the distribution. The other good part about this contract is that about the fixed costs in their rate and everything, I think over 90% of on their rates covers the fixed costs. So even if they had renewables or other energy components or different things like that, they're still covered under that component. So that's really, in contrast to that, for the residential, a lot of their costs are embedded in the energy costs. So when they don't pay energy, they're not paying for the debt and all those other fixed costs of the system. So it's been a very good contract, and we ask you to approve.
Thank you, John. John, I just have a real quick question. On tables 3, 4, and 5, with all those assets that are being transferred, are some of those behind the fence on Navy property?
I'm trying to think. Most of it is outside the fence. I think some transmission maybe go right to the substation. But I don't. It's been a while. I don't have all the details, but it's still on the major transmission for sure, and then some distribution that actually we've been working with them on that. But we're under a 50-year lease with them for those assets, which is no cost, and that's to allow them to provide environmental clearance for all those facilities prior to transferring it to us. One, the first one was Accra substation, which we got transferred last year, I believe. And so that's the model to future transfer. And we did that so that we could tie in the Hanwha 115 all the way to Authorize, and Authorize to be. So, but yeah, most of it is really outside the base. But they're more, they're allowing us in the base now. If you know the NG Phase 3 that we're working now on the contract to bring to you, the Superior Court of Guam did rule in the GPA's favor. The proponent protested, decided, told us they're not going to protest, they're not going to appeal it to the Supreme Court. So we're getting that to bring to you, but that's on 164 acres of Navy property. About half of it in the Naval Station, and the other half is up in NCS Kindergarten. So it's getting in the base now, it's not a real issue between us, again, because it's a joint benefit there.
Thanks, John. Any other comments?
Just a quick question, John. Fred mentioned earlier that this building is every 7 days to the Navy. And the fuel cost is considered separately with the rising fuel costs nowadays. I mean, how, can you just break down, like, how do you guys compute your fuel cost that you build to the Navy? Is it just based on the current price of barrel in the market at that time during that 7 days?
It's really, they get their lead component of the 18 cents or whatever.
Or currently have for Guam.
And it's based on that, so that every 7 days they will be there, what they have consumed approximately, and then,
Also, their LEAC is our LEAC then. They do
yeah,
have.
because we don't share the total, but we have a separate layer from our share. That's what we have our LEAC. With them, it's really their share of the fuel cost. No? So
Right.
whatever the fuel cost is for this period,
They're purchasing that.
they pay their share right off, whereas us, we write it or do it in the LEAC.
Right.
So that everyone pays their fuel costs. But the good thing about them is that for cash flow purposes, they pay us every 7 days instead of us waiting for 30 days.
Right. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions from the commission? Not, is there a motion?
Chair, motion to approve GPA docket 2206.
Is there a second to the motion?
Second.
Joe seconds it. All in favor, say aye. Pedro, are you an aye or a nay? You're a nay. Okay, so the motion passes 5-1. Next item is GPA docket 2207, petition to approve Cabras Unit Number 2 major overhaul. We have a PUC council report and a proposed order. Fred?
Mr. Chairman, this report is not ready yet.
Okay.
It's not complete.
Very good. Next item is GPA docket 2208, petition for review and approval of GPA's 2022 integrated resource plan. We just have a status report.
Yes, it's an oral status report for me. This is not yet ready for being addressed by the commission. But I just kind of wanted to fill you in where we are in this process. In the petition itself, GPA is requesting approval of its 2022 Integrated Resource Plan. And I think many of you may remember, going back at least as far as 2012, the commission reviewed the Integrated Resource Plan of GPA at that time. And of course, in that particular plan, there was talk about building the new power plant, bringing some of the first renewables on island. And the commission, in that matter, had a consultant, Lummus Consultants, that helped review it. And then ultimately, the commission approved it. And then in about 2016, I believe there were some amendments and updates to the Integrated Resource Plan. Well, now, GPA again, and this is usually done, I think, about every 5 years, something like that. GPA will provide the PUC with the IRP, as it's called, and it's really a roadmap. It's what GPA intends to do over the next 5 years to improve the power system. And in the petition, it's interesting. The main plan is, I guess, about probably a 9-year budget of about $233 million that would, to a great extent, go towards integrating new renewables into the GPA system. And those, of course, are for the purpose of meeting with the renewable portfolio standards established by the legislature, which are the 50% renewables, I believe, by 2035, and 100% by maybe 2040 or 45. So GPA has a plan in there, and if you look at the petition, actually there's a nice summary where they've summarized different volumes. It's very readable. So if you just want to get an idea of what their plan is for the next 5 years, that'll give you a good update. However, that's not all that GPA has produced on this. They've also provided us with about a CD with about 1,000 pages of documents. So as the commission has done in the past, it's appropriate to have a consultant assist here. And the same consultant that helped in 2012, Kathy Kelly from Denmark Energy Advisors, which is one of the consultants the PUC has retained, will be conducting the review. They're already looking at the review. They've started to work with the GPA and Mr. Botha. We expect that this matter may not come before the PUC until May. I've been pushing them to try to expedite it a bit and maybe get it done by April, but looks like May be more feasible at this point. So they're already working on it. And GPA and Denmark, along with myself, will be going through the process by which GPA will provide information to Denmark. And we're trying to expedite things instead of a lot of written discovery changes. We hope to have oral conferences that will address the issues. So I just wanted to generally advise you where this matter stands. It should be ready by, I'll say, May.
Thanks, Fred. John, any comments about this at all?
Yes, very quickly. Integrated looks out 20 years, but more importantly, the next 10 years. Huh? And it's really a plan, that's why we call it Integrated Resource Plan. But it tries to look at, what are, based on the projected loads, projected fuel pricing, what equipment we have and all of that, it tries to determine, and again, based on the mandate and then, like Fred mentioned, how much renewables do we need over the next 10 years, right? We're trying to achieve a 50% renewable portfolio, not in 2035, but 2030. And with that, you're looking at about 400 megawatts more of additional capacity. Not any more conventional capacity, but just renewable capacity. And so with that, also, again, to transform the system to be able to accommodate the renewables in addition to the power plants, the relaying, all different parts. of the system. And when you have the system all DC inverter based and all of that, you have to have synchronous condensers or something, momentum in the system to allow you to, for breakers to trip and everything and allow you not to have blackout. So we've identified, our team looked at all of that and like Fred said, identified about 230 million of potential I say, because I'll play that in a minute, of capacity of investments that we'll have to make that happen. So again, when I say, when we look at the IRP, when you approve the IRP, it's really a planning tool for us, no? It doesn't mean that whatever is there right away has to be, if it says, okay, approve it, I have to go out for the 480 megawatts and that's it. The way it works is now, if you're proving that, okay, yes, we're going to continue with renewables, keep moving forward. Now that we put in the new power plant, that is going to, by this date, we put in the 41 megawatt by this date, and we put the 165 that we have in current renewables. What else would it take to get to 50% by 2030? So we identify that, and also next step is, and again, even before that, we'll come to you and say, okay, like we did in the bid for the 120 megawatts. No? Commissioners, we like to go out for a bid for 120 or 150 this type of utility, this type of PV system, utility scale, maybe some other type of models that we will bring to you. Then that's the time you start approving all of these different things. The same thing with the investment. No? If it's over $1.5 million, we have to bring it to you. When you have a crack at the pool, it's just that it's really one way to look at it is look at the IRP and see, are we missing anything? We try to cover everything so that there's no real surprises. Probably one or two might pop up, no, but we really, our team really looked hard and identified what we have to do to make it happen by 2030. And all that. So, and it does say, okay, no more conventional units, you can retire PD 8 or 9, all of those things. The date of retirement and all of that, again, we will come to you because of the variables in the system. No? You can't just say retire it now, and then we're still not, no new power plant yet, right? So again, those are the things now, but it identifies all of that including, I said by March I will bring you the study required for the distribution. Part of it is actually in there, about six feeders, I think, out of 52 that we have. But it gives you an idea of what's going on in the system these days, because like I mentioned the last time, there's some areas that the voltage is over 125%, circuit is way too many solar rooftop and things like that. But again, that's the framework. That's kind of how we look at the RRP, and then we'll be coming to you for the various approval. And at that point, there'll be a lot more discussion on why this way, why that way, that kind of stuff.
Thank you, John. Hey, John, just a quick question on I noticed in the planning, they had, you had some room in there for the EV charging stations as part of the plan. Is that something that's gonna take like 20 to 2030 to get up, or
No.
you guys will be, when do you anticipate something like stations around the island?
Actually, maybe we can probably going out for a bit, maybe or something in about a year or so.
A year or so?
Because we're waiting really for the different models of electric vehicle to come out.
Right.
Come out and be more affordable and all of that. And then we will proceed that. So part of what's in the IRP is we're gonna go out and also analyze it further. We still have some time. I know EV is gonna be the way to go, supposedly, but you will identify that, because there are other ways, because here and there if anybody's traveling 50 miles a day, that's a lot of travel stuff. So if not, you just go home and you charge it at home, right?
Right.
So we just have stations somewhere, and then At that point, Mr. Chair, that's when we start coming in with the, the time of use rates, try and move them away from us speaking all the time, move them on people.
Charge at night.
So that's where now you'll start seeing those two components. So that's the EV. On the load forecast, we look at two load forecasts, base, and then we look at the high. And the high includes data centers, because there's more and more data centers that are being built here, or in the future. So we anticipate, so we don't want to not have the adequate capacity to serve that. But renewables is gonna really the one who's gonna serve that, because that's what they like,
Right.
And so but that's all in the like Fred said, it's only 1,000 pages, so maybe 10 a day or something. Yes, thank you.
Thank you, John. Okay, anything else?
Yeah, can I just ask,
Go ahead, Mike.
because there's no ALJ report yet, that's probably why I don't see it, but can you just remind us what the statutory requirement is? Like, there's a mandate that this IRP be filed, and then you mentioned that our Denmark consultants are gonna go through discovery process, because I don't see a statutory basis mentioned in the.
Yeah, well, it would likely be the contract review protocol, because obviously, the IRP could, if followed, result in expenditures of more than 1.5 billion. So, and the statutory review of contracts that's required, governing title.
But it's not required every certain number of years. I noticed that there was one in 2014 and 16.
There may be older orders that include such a requirement, but I just know that as a practice, it's usually done every 5 years.
The IRP is not a contract, right? Is it signed by two parties?
Well, it doesn't just have to be a written contract, any obligation that could cost the utility money. So a plan, while not necessarily, I guess, obligating them to full expenditure, it could be used to, further expenditure of those amounts. I think because, and the numbers are quite high, as I said, 230 million. So it's something the PUC should review and at least give an overall opinion on.
Anything else?
Fred, what is the law that requires renewables by
30, 50%.
wouldn't that sort of cover having to have an IRP plan?
Well, not necessarily. Now, those are portfolio standards, and actually, we could spend a lot of time discussing, are they mandatory or not mandatory? The statute was changed from should, I think, to may, should to will, kind of attempt to achieve those portfolio standards, but there's other language in there that gives GPA some discretion. So, you can argue whether they're mandatory, but they're certainly guidelines, and I think something GPA in good faith is trying to see what it can do to comply with them. But I don't think that alone would mandate the IRP. I think the IRP does go back probably to something in the regulatory framework with Georgetown. I don't know, John may remember better than I, but I think there are always discussions about that, and then the kind of process that I've described was developed.
So it's not necessarily mandated, it sounds like. It's just a custom that's been developed
Yeah.
over the years.
And unless under the contract review.
Okay, let's move on to, PAG docket, thank you, GPA. PAG docket 2201, petition of the Port Authority to approve award for ultra-low sulfur diesel delivery by South Pacific Petroleum Corporation. We have an ALJ report and a proposed order.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So this matter concerns PAG's request for PC approval approval of a contract with South Pacific Petroleum Corporation, also known as SPPC, related to the delivery of ultra-low sulfur diesel fuel to KG's load centers, above-ground storage tank, as well as to its gantry cranes. According to KG, the port requires this fuel for its cargo handling operations. This fuel is required to ensure that such operations continue on a 24-hour daily basis, as well as to prevent costly delays to consumers, buyers, as well as all the people of Guam. According to PG, it utilizes this ultra-low sulfur diesel fuel of about 15,000 gallons per month, if that's correct. And in November of last year, PG issued an IFB, an invitation for bid, which sought the delivery of this fuel to the port's gantry cranes, load centers, and above-ground storage tank. In response to this IFB, PG received 2 bids, which PG has analyzed, and from the procurement, PG identified SPPC as offering the lowest responsible and responsive bid of $2.75 per gallon of ultra-low sulfur diesel fuel, or about $460,690 per year for about 170,000 gallons of ultra-low sulfur diesel fuel. As indicated in the IFP issued by PAG, like I mentioned, the fuel is specifically for the port's cargo handling and support equipment. Again, the port's gantry cranes, gantry number 4, gantry number 5, and gantry number 6, including the port's 5 load centers, as well as the port's 8,000 gallon above ground fuel tank. The IFB requires a direct delivery of this fuel from the contractor's tanker truck to the equipment, and all quantities and deliveries will be on an as-needed basis, coordinated between PAG and the contractor. This IFB provides for an initial 3-year term with 2-year-long options for renewal. And according to PAG, it anticipates spending approximately $460,000 per year for the delivery and the fuel, which it will fund internally. As this commission may know, SPPC offers bulk fuel delivery for commercial needs, as well as has a temporary fuel storage tanks and has its own terminal on Cabras Island. And so based on the documentation that PG provided to me, I found the contract to be reasonable and necessary, and that the fueling of the port's cargo handling and support equipment is indeed crucial to its operations. And without a doubt, the port needs this fuel, and in order to ensure that such operations continue 24 hours a day uninterrupted, to prevent any delays of goods to the consumers of Guam. And further, based on the current services that SPPC offers consumers, as well as the fact that SPPC has its own terminal at the port, it is certainly qualified to provide the services that's set forth in the IFB. And so based on this record, Mr. Chairman, I recommend that the PC approve the contract with the SPPC.
Thank you, Joe Pat. Rory, do you have any comments on this docket?
The only to reflect that Mark Rivera and Stephen Munya are here with me tonight. They're with procurement. Just a little bit of a background. We've been on a month-to-month with the SPPC with 21 extensions. This is an issue that the Attorney General and also a contract that was carried over. We received our procurement delegation. We were told that this had to go out for an IFB, and so that was done. But the price that we're asking for in this bid award is the exact same price that was set at 21 months ago. And so thankfully, the only thing that we're doing is formalizing the process, which we should be, going through the Attorney General special Attorney General designation because it's over 500,000, and now coming before the PUC to secure PUC's approval.
Thanks, Mark. Any questions from the commissioners?
I have to make a motion to approve.
Okay, Pedro makes the motion to approve. Second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
The motion carries unanimously. Next item is PAG docket 2202, petition of the Port Authority for approval of the water line replacement project. We have an ALJ report and a proposed order. Fred?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. In this matter, the Port Authority is requesting PUC approval of the procurement contract award to BME and Sons, Inc. for the water line replacement project. Now, the court submitted a full CD of materials about its procurement process, which included a lot of description of the water line project. And my overall impression is certainly it's a very complex project with multiple drawings of all the different kinds of work. Just to quote some of the material I provided in the ALJ report, the existing main water lines of the Port Authority are over 50 years old, with some being asbestos pipes. The main line is a 16-inch diameter line that distributes to other water lines throughout the container yard. Existing 16-inch and 10-inch diameter water lines run diagonally through the container yard and return to Route 11. The water system contains a 10-inch loop system that covers the waterfront, which feeds to the port buildings on the west end of the terminal. There are also 6-inch diameter water lines connecting from the 10-inch diameter lines to the fire suppression system within the buildings and hydrants in the container yard. The project itself is basically replacing old main water lines at the port, and this is intended to repair numerous water leaks that were previously detected in the compound. There will be a relocation of the main service feed line from within the container yard to a new routing along the Route 11 roadway. Now, I've included other materials in the report describing the scope of the project and very specifically all the duties and responsibilities of the contractor. I won't go into too much more detail about those now. But the whole project itself, the water line replacement project, was first identified in the PHE 2018 to 2022 capital improvement plan. And you'll remember the port issued a series of bonds in 2018, and there was a consulting report along with those bonds. And at that time, the consulting engineer, which is required for any bond issuance, he determined that replacement and relocation project was estimated at $7.14 million at that time. Now, in September 2021, of course, the port determined that management administrator. It was determined that the award should be made to BME and Sons as they had submitted the appropriate documents, and they were determined to have met the necessary standards of responsibility and responsiveness. At the time I submitted my report to you, the port board had not yet actually approved the award, But just last night, the Port Authority did enact a resolution, which has been provided to me, approving the award to BME and Sons for the waterline project and authorizing PHE to come before the PUC for approval. So I think this matter is properly before you now. As to the contract review, of course, this involves bond funds. This is a bond-funded project, so all bond funds, no matter what the contract amount is, have to be approved. Any use of bond funds has to be approved by the PUC, so it is properly before you. As I said in my report, I described the scope of services and talks about how many feet of line for each of the lines is going to be replaced. I can only conclude from reviewing the materials that it is quite a complex project. And just to give you an example of one of the duties of the contractor that I thought was sounded pretty difficult, the contractor will provide the 2-inch core holes spaced at 50 feet on center for the flowable concrete fill to be pumped into the existing pipe. So that's a part of the project, you know, indicating the level of complexity. For that reason, since it is a complex construction project, it required a contractor with a lot of credentials. And in fact, the IFB, which the port issued, it required contractors to meet numerous pre-qualification criteria. These included the capacity to provide performance bond, payment bond, and insurance, a completion of a minimum of 5 projects of similar quality, type, and scope, including a minimum of 2 within the last 2 years, a record of project completion, a good credit record, and a history without a lot of claims and legal proceedings. So BME satisfied all of those requirements. The main justification for the waterline project indicated by PHE is that the water lines and recent breaks in those lines have caused a hindrance to port operations and a safety hazard to port personnel and the safe movement of commercial cargo and port cargo handling equipment. By replacing these water lines, the port believes it can eliminate these hazards and prevent the need to constantly repair the water lines. There have been 15 major leaks to the water lines in the past 3 years. Now, as for the proposed agreement itself, it's a pretty standard construction contract. I do believe, having reviewed it, that it protects the interests of the port and its customers. It allows termination of the contractor for convenience or for default. There's an indemnification clause. There are provisions for bid security and performance bond. Bid security in the amount of 5% was required. The performance bond, payment bond, and labor and materials bond are required in the amount of 100% of the contract. And there are insurance requirements. Now, if you look at the bids, I think a main question here is the reasonableness of the amount of the bid. And BME was quite a bit below all of the bidders. For 3 of the bidders, the higher 3 bids, BME was between $700,000 and $2.1 million less. And the one bidder that came in after BME, that's AYM, they were still $140,000 more on the bid. So clearly BME really did have the lowest and most reasonable bid. Now, what should the cost of the project be? There was a little discrepancy here. The consulting engineer in 2018 said it would be $7.14 million. There was another 2019 estimate by Macario and Associates, who was the port's consultant had said 2.8 million. Quite a discrepancy, you know, I'm not quite sure. I understand all the reasons for it, but the port has indicated that the original 2.8 million estimate, basically that was 2019, and they indicate prices for products have increased considerably since then, since when the bid was issued in December 2021. Now, if I analyze it, to me, the best estimate of what does the project cost is you look at the bidders, and BME was just far and away the low bidder. I can't really see much purpose here in thinking about a rebid, because there's nothing to suggest that the bids would be any different than came in this time. Now, the port has also stated that this project is really urgently needed because of the repairs that are needed to the water line. And again, the estimates vary so much. I mean, you could say the consulting engineer's estimate of 7.14 million could be taken too as a valid estimate. And those are always quite carefully done for the estimate of bond expenditures and the amounts needed for the bond. So all in all on that, I concluded that based on the variance of the cost estimates, the low amount of the BME bid compared to other bids, and the urgent need for the waterline project, that the commissioner should approve the award to BME. And so my recommendation is that you approve the procurement award to BME and Sons and authorize the port to expend the amount of 4.856 plus million. The justification for the necessity is a strong one, and the project will assist PAG in further modernizing the port infrastructure and facilities. I prepared an order for your approval that would approve the IFB award and the selection of BME, and also authorize the expenditure of the contract.
Thank you, Fred. Lori, any comments?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. Real quickly, also, for the record, Stephen Munya and Mark Cabrera are with me tonight. They're from Procurement. Thank you for the ALJ report. I could clarify that the $7 million was to cover 3 projects. It was the water line, it was the EQMR building, it was the warehouse one facilities. None of these estimates that we're finding, that were estimated in 2014 originally with the revenue bond funded projects, they're all underfunded. As was the case of the Hotel Wharf, the budget for that was $24 million. We received one lone bidder, and it came in at $59 million because of the cost of steel, the availability of steel, and so working with MARAD and Department of Transportation to try to figure out some workaround, especially with the Buy American provision. With the waterline project, is most important project of all revenue bond funded projects. As Attorney Hareki pointed out, nothing happens in the yard without water. And in addition to the 15 major water breaks, we have a water line break almost every 4 to 6 months, if not higher frequency. The water line breaks, we have to call waterworks. They've been very responsive. They troubleshoot the line, they isolate the line. And whenever we have to shut off water entirely, we have a really good working relationship now with the Coast Guard, where the captain of port allows operations to continue, provided mitigating efforts are in place, like the vessels have to lay out their fire hoses, and we have to have fire watch, and we have to inform the PD fire station to be on standby and high alert in case there's a fire in the yard. So it's a very precarious situation. We went ahead with the bid submission, and the board thankfully approved it because although it was $2 million more than what was budgeted, as Fred pointed out, Attorney Hareki pointed out, it's still from 4.8 all the way to 6.9 was the highest. We had a board meeting today, and the board of directors also approved the award for the EQMR building. That came up at over $1.3 million overfunded. But we believe through working with the contractor, with looking at possible designs that maybe could be forgo, those through procurement can be done to mitigate any amounts, but in the end, we are budgeted for that particular project. We canceled warehouse 1 in its entirety because it came in $2 million more than what was budgeted. And in warehouse 1, we were looking at the design. Do we put in $6 million into warehouse 1 only to have that last for 5 years, when the real plan for warehouse 1 should be to demolish it and to rebuild? Those facilities are really old, over 50 years old. The water line in question is about 50 years old. And this is the cost of what those water lines would cost to do, and we're hoping for support.
Thanks, Roy. Joe?
Yes, great to see that 5 bidders came out for this bid. There's 365 days to complete this project, once signed,
Correct.
and what's the penalties if they extend?
Liquidate down to $1,000 a day.
Yeah, standard.
And is all the equipment and supplies on island for this project, or is there any concern that they won't meet this 365 days?
It was not an issue during the bid process. They didn't ask for an extension of the performance period.
Yeah, none of those issues came up during contract negotiations.
Anybody else have anything on regarding this? Mike?
Rory, you mentioned, you've been given a special attorney general designation for this to review the procurement, because it's over 500,000.
Correct. So we have our
Who's that
procurement
designation?
delegation authority, and our in-house counsel also has the special assistant attorney general designation for all procurements over $500,000.
Okay.
Which is why we're now seeing procurement move. We have those two elements. We have our own authority, delegation authority, and we have an in-house counsel.
Yeah, that's what the 2 gentlemen here, and one of them is in-house counsel, or?
The ones behind me, no, they work in procurement.
Okay.
They're procurement gurus.
So who's the in-house counsel?
Christine Clavera.
Oh, okay.
She recently got married to Brian Ariola, and I'm not sure if she formally changed her last name. So Christine Clavera.
Anything else? Pedro? Okay. Pedro makes a motion. Rowena second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
The motion carries unanimously. Thank you, Rory. Thank you, Ford.
Thank you.
We don't have any administrative matters this evening, so I think we just need a motion.
I just have one question on this. Where are we with our PUC emails?
Oh, I can talk to Jared about that. He's been instructed this stuff.
Just wanted, we have a lot of personal stuff coming through, so.
Okay. Motion to adjourn? To adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
Meeting's over.